Hey guys, it's Marina with Artworthy Life, where I teach Christ-centered art journaling that gets you into God's Word every day. Happy Friday, everybody. And today in this episode, I am going to be showing you a really quick one brush painting of a floral arrangement. So if that sounds exciting for you, please share it with someone that you think would enjoy it and stick around to the very, very end because we're going to finish this art journal page from start to finish. And I want you guys to see how simple it is to do a really pretty art journal page without having to take a super long time from it. So, but as a super long time from it, that was really good grammar, a super long time on it. There we go. I am currently helping out with a florist shop. So I have been surrounded by gorgeous, beautiful flowers for the last couple of days, and I'll get to help them today and tomorrow as well. So I just thought it would be so fun to do that. But of course, before I get started, I always like to start with some scripture to get you started on the right foot. So let's go ahead and read a verse that I thought would be really fun for today. More comforting than fun, even. Most of the time, I think we can easily let life get swept away with us, and we can get super busy. I know I'm guilty of that, and I feel like I'm either on one end or the other of the spectrum. I'm either like feeling super crazed busy, or I'm feeling super lazy. And sometimes I feel those simultaneously. I don't know if you can relate. Tell me if you can relate. Say I can relate in the comments. I just thought this verse was so encouraging for me this morning. It was on my heart, and I thought I will go ahead and share it with you. This is from 1 Corinthians chapter 14, verse 33. And here's what it says. For God is not the author of confusion, but of peace, as in all churches of the saints. God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. I think I heard a preacher say one time, if you are feeling confused, you know it's not from God. You know, if you're not feeling peace, because he's the author of peace, whatever it is that's affecting you is not from God. Now, that's not to say that we don't have like difficult decisions that we have to walk through with Christ, but it's a good rule of thumb if you're just super clouded in your mind and you're not able to anchor down truth, that is not of God. God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. We know that Satan is the father of lies, and lies are the root of confusion. So we know that it comes from the enemy if we're not feeling peaceful and if we're feeling confused. So I just love that verse. He is the author of peace. So if you're gonna find peace, you got to get close to the author of it, right? So stay in the Word, stay in prayer, and that's what we focus on in the Artworthy Journal Club and here at Artworthy Life, is just getting back into the Word every day, even if it just means doing a little bit of art and thinking about Scripture and doing some journaling, even if your art isn't related to whatever verse you're reading. It's just that mindset of continuously going back to the Word, continuously going back to your knees in prayer, and like spending time with God, the author of peace. And I just think that's really special. So I hope that verse is encouraging for you. And we're going to go ahead and get right into it because I cannot wait for this painting. I'm so excited. So let me go ahead and I'm hoping I have my technology lined up properly and I'm not going to have like weird echoes and things, but you guys can tell me if something is strange. I don't think I have any echoes going on, so it should be good. All right, tell me if you hear weird echoes, and if you do, I'll try to work it out. So what I have here is a really fun page that I finished the other day. If you don't know, my parents have been married 29 years, which I am so proud of them for. I feel incredibly privileged to be the child of a marriage that has lasted. And I know a lot of people can't say that, and it's really hard that our society has come to a place where that is just really common. But my parents have been married that long. I'm super grateful for it. So I painted this painting of them the other day, and I thought it would be really fun, adjacent to that, to go ahead and do a bouquet. So the bouquet will go really well with this wedding type painting. In fact, this is not even a painting of their wedding photo. It's a painting of their 15th wedding anniversary photo, which we took in Hawaii. It was a really fun photo. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I want to show you, let's see, I think I can, I know there's a way to do this. I did have this pulled up. Okay, so I'm going to show you what I've been doing this week. If you weren't on a couple minutes ago, I just said that this week I have been helping with a wonderful, just incredible florist shop in town, in Eugene. And so if you're local, go check out Dandelion Florist. They're amazing. And they have the most incredible floral designers. They're so fun. And they're also just amazing people. So, I mean, like, that's amazing. And I, because of the Mother's Day rush, a friend of mine that works there, asked if some of us ladies from the choir could come and help out. And I have been having a blast. So let me show you, if I can get this to pull up, let me show you one of the arrangements that I was able to do. And go ahead and leave a comment so I can see you. Tell me where you're watching from. And hopefully I'll be able to say hi. So let me share my screen. Okay, I guess you guys can see everything. But let's do this. Here we go. So hopefully you guys can see this. I don't know if you can or not, but this is the coolest fun arrangement that I made so far. It was called more of a garden-y arrangement because things get to be more loose and kind of beautiful all over the place. And I think I have a picture of me holding it as well, but I'm not sure if that's going to pull up. So I just really enjoyed that. I thought it was so fun. Oh, maybe I wasn't sharing the screen. Did you guys see that? You have to tell me if you can see that. Hey, Lillian. I'm still working on learning this. I don't know if I'm doing such a good job of learning how to show stuff on the screen. Let's see. Maybe you guys couldn't see it after all. So tell me if you guys could see that, because I don't think it popped up. I want you guys to see this picture before I start to paint it. I think that's way cool. Okay, so it's a bigger arrangement, and a lot of these we're putting together for Mother's Day. So just plug to our local Dandelion floral shop. I'm not sure if that's exactly how you say their name, but I know it's Dandelion, and they have the coolest arrangements. Okay, so Aunt Emmy is saying, hey, Aunt Emmy. She's saying she cannot see. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to just take my camera and show you my screen, because you got to see this really cool arrangement. Let me just show you the picture. All right, here it is. This is the, look at, oh, I can magnify it for you. This is the arrangement that I did yesterday. It was so fun. I got to put in all, I did it from start to finish, so it was really fun. And let's see, can I show you the other, here's me holding it. Oops, maybe, there we go. Here's me holding it. And you can see there's just leaves and stuff everywhere. But I had such a fun time creating this one that I thought this is what we would paint today. So I wanted you to see the original before I start to paint. And it's going to be simplified. We're just going to do a really simple, quick painting, because I want you to see that you can do something beautiful in your art journaling, even if you don't have a lot of time. So we're going to do a quick painting, but this is what it's inspired by. And I wanted you to see that original painting, or original photo, reference photo. Alrighty, so let's jump right into it. This is a really fun one, so I'm excited. Love the shadow of it. Aunt Emmy, are you talking about what are you talking about with a shadow? Are you talking about the photo, or are you talking about this painting here? Thank you. That's really sweet. All right. Hey, Lillian, so glad to see you on. So if you would like to know what supplies I'm using, I'm just going to put a banner up here that tells you the supplies I normally use. In addition to these, and I actually should change this, but the brush that I'm using today is a Princeton Velvet Touch Long Round size 10, and it is a powerhouse of a paintbrush, which is why today's painting is from start to finish a one brush painting. So I hope that you will stick around to the end, because it's going to be a really, really fun painting. So here we go. We're going to start. Oh, Aunt Emmy says she loves the shadow of the bouquet. That's really great. Thank you so much. I had so much fun on that bouquet. You don't even know. It was like so fun. So what's interesting about art versus floral arranging, it's been interesting for me to experiment with floral arranging and how that is an art form in of itself, totally an art form in of itself. Don't let anybody tell you it's not. It's amazing. But we typically with the floral arrangements, you basically, and I'm cleaning out my watercolor palette right now, you basically layer, just like you would with acrylic paint, you start with a foundation. They call that a green up, at least at that shop. I don't know if that's like the normal term for it, but you start with the greens and then you layer and then you add in the other flowers. In watercolors, a lot of people are intimidated by watercolors because they are counterintuitive sometimes. And one of the reasons is because typically you start with your you start with your lightest colors, and oftentimes that is what you would typically think of being your last layer, not your first layer. So in other words, if there is white in the page, you've got to think about that first. You can't wait until the end and then add your white in. There are products like gouache, and of course you could always use a white pen or something like that to add that in, but typically you want to stick to using the white page as your white. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Thank you. Oh dear. The thank you was for whoever said God bless you just then. Okay. So, but you have to think about your white ahead of time. So in this picture, we're going to have some white things going on, and I'm just going to have to know where those are ahead of time. So one of them is like going to be a bit of hydrangea, and the other is going to be I forget what they're called. Anyway, still learning flower names. The little things that are sticking out the top. They're white and they're long, and you people that know flowers can tell me. I had to ask a couple of times, what was that called? Maybe I'll think of it and then I can comment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with the roses. Now this paintbrush is way bigger than I would typically go for detail, but it has a really nice fine tip, so it actually works better than you'd expect for like detail, little flowers and things. I'm trying to make sure you guys can see where my palette is, and I guess you can't, so I'm going to mix right here on top of my other painting. So I'm mixing yellow ochre and some crimson, and I'm watering it down, and I'm just going to do really simple, super simple roses. These flowers are not going to be detailed. They are just a hint of a shape, basically. So I'm going to keep these, and what I'm doing is I'm starting with the very lightest flowers. These are the lightest flowers in the arrangement, so I'm going to start with those. And I'm just kind of doing a little swirl to create that rose shape. And then I'm going to do the little petal and kind of the base of the rose. But really simple, nothing complicated, just kind of a little swirl blob thing there. It doesn't even have to have a lot of the color of the rose, because you're going to have so many other flowers happening that it just needs to sort of be there. It doesn't need to be very detailed. Now what I'm doing now is I grabbed a little bit more crimson, mixed it in, and I'm just adding little bits of shadow on the edge of every line I just did. I did these really quick half moon shape lines, and I'm just adding a little bit of shadow to those to make that rose a little bit more three-dimensional. Now I'm going to do another little rose that's facing more forwards to match the one in the front, and it's just going to be a little swirl. And I always say I start with like a number 6 shape, and then I do these little like half moon shapes all the way around. I'm just kind of eyeballing what this particular rose looks like, but I'm basically going off of my mind of a normal rose shape that I would do any other day. So just doing those half moon shapes. And I know this is teeny, but I just want you to see that it's not super complicated. We're just doing little lines, quick little lines. Now on this one, we're not going to do as much of the base of the rose, like if it were a cup. We're not going to do this part. We're going to do mostly the top because it's tilted towards you, so you're only seeing the top of it mostly. So I'm just going to do those little petals out toward the edge, but not much more than that. Little bits. Now I'm going to grab crimson again, darken that up a bit, and just come back and add a little shadow. It's amazing. Just one extra layer of shadow can very quickly add a lot more dimension to a painting without you even really having to work at it. So there's our second rose. Just going to leave that kind of loose. I want to grab a little bit of brown and crimson. I'm darkening up my crimson is what I'm doing. And just going to go in a little bit more with a tiny bit more shadow around the edges of each of these petals. And especially at the center of the rose, where there would be more shadow, I'm just going to concentrate a little bit of shadow. All right, that'll do it for those two. And obviously it's just the tops of the roses because you can't see the rest of them. They're kind of stuffed into the bouquet, so we're good. Now we're going to start layering light to dark. So the next color that we can see really clearly is kind of a chartreuse yellow. It's actually yellow, but it's on a stem that is green. And because it's these little beady type flowers, this is called aster? Yellow aster. I don't know if that's the name of it. You guys tell me. Somebody Google that and I'll tell you if it looks like it. Solid aster. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. I think I got it. Okay. I'm little by little learning these flower names and shapes so that I can remember them. Let me see if I'm missing comments. Good morning, Teresa. She says she's been loving helping with floral arrangements at church. Yes, you've had some beautiful ones. In fact, if you have a picture of a good one, I'd love to paint it. God bless you too. Thank you. Hi, Leslie Ann. So glad to see you on. Oh, and Teresa's watching with Sophia from Washington. Hello, Fia. How are you? Okay, I'm going to grab my yellow, and this is I'm using lemon yellow, but it has some green in it. My yellow is always dirty, so add something to dirty up your yellow a little, and you'll be pretty close to the color I have. You could also use olive green or just a touch of like peat green, something like that, and that would do it. So what we're going to do is look for the angle of the little spray that's coming out here, and I'm just going to lightly draw in the little dots, and it has multiple little sprigs coming off of it. It's a cute little thing. Yeah, Teresa, you might be able to help me with the name of some of these flowers. I don't know, maybe you are better at remembering them. I had to ask so many times, and just the greens have a lot of names, just the greens themselves, and not even considering the flowers before you ever get to those. I'm adding a touch of peak green because my yellow is kind of gross. I don't know. It doesn't look quite what I want it to be. So I'm adding a little bit more green to make it happier. Oh, now it's too green. I'm going to get a little bit more yellow. And then just keep going with this little shape. Doesn't have to be particular. I'm mostly just kind of polka dotting it. And then I'm going to add some shadow in a little bit. So there's my little spray of color, and I don't need to go very far with it because there's a bunch of leafy stuff in front. But there is some over here on the right as well. We kind of had like a tall branch and then we had a shorter one to offset it. This one's off to the right. I'm just gonna paint that one in like that. And my picture is kind of small, so I'm gonna do my best. And this one is leaning off to the right quite a bit. So I'm doing light to dark. So I'm starting with the lightest colors because it's really hard to paint in the lighter colors when you've already like filled up all of your visual space with dark colors. It's nice to get all those light colors in, put them where you want them, and then you can always layer on top of light colors, but you can't layer on top of dark colors with a light color, in watercolor at least, just because watercolors are transparent so you can see through them. There's a little bit of this sprig coming out forward, so I'm just going to put a little bit there. And you can tell I'm not being really particular about the shape. Just getting, it's almost like just a fireworks kind of poof thing coming out. And I think that'll work. I want a little bit more of the sunny yellow, even though that's not really the color that's happening. But I want I'm not liking the green too much. I'm going to clean up my palette. Get a little bit more of the regular yellow and brighten this up. So I'm going to take the brightest yellow again. I'm actually going to touch my neon yellow to bring in that really bright color and touch the very tips of this because I want that, I want it really yellow. Yeah, like that. So a little bit more yellow. And I'm going to just kind of sprinkle some little floating polka dots everywhere, like almost like the pollen is going crazy. Has your pollen been crazy where you guys are? It feels like everybody is having allergies right now. It's been crazy. Alrighty, so that is the next lightest color, and we have another fun kind of in-between color. Oh, I think I'm going to start, before I do that, I think I'm going to do a very light green to kind of outline the shape of where the hydrangea is. The hydrangea is white, so I want to keep it actually mostly white, but I'm going to use green to sort of outline where it is since I'm not using pencil. If I were taking more time with this, I might use pencil and outline that, but I'm just going to use a very watered down olive green and a little bit of peak green, and I'm going to put my hydrangea where I want it. So the hydrangea is actually sort of surrounding the rose. It was cool. We had this really fun rose, and we got to stick it kind of inside the hydrangea to make the hydrangea not look just like a big giant ball. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this really light green and I'm just outlining where the hydrangea is, because even though the hydrangea is white, it has all of these little green shadows and little green buds in the center of each of the little flower things. So I'm just using green to kind of make the shape of it, and then I'm just going to polka dot green all throughout the center. Again, we're not doing detailed, like this isn't a detailed painting. We're just getting the shape of all the flowers down, so I can do polka dots and call that my little hydrangea right there. So that's going to be my hydrangea, maybe a little bit more here, and I might add some more shadow later on, but that's enough to give me the shape. And then the other thing I want to do with the same color is the little things coming out the top that I'm blanking on the name of. So they're white also, and they kind of come up at the top, and then they curl just a little. So I'm going to do kind of an outline of green, and then I'm going to make them wiggle at the top. Just a little S-shape curl at the top. I'm going to do another one off next to the rose. And I'm going to make this one curl even more to the right. And that will definitely have some more shadow later, but that'll work for now. Okay, so that gives those their shape. And now I want to start on the, it's like a, I don't even know what color to call that. It's a purpley pink color. And I'm going to use cerise to start with because it's almost perfect. I'm just going to mix it into the peachy color that I already have on the palette until it gets purple enough. But I want it to have that kind of muted color. So I'm going to let the oranges mix with that. And that looks close enough. So now that I have that mixed up, I'm going to start with yellow actually, because these are little flowers that have yellow and pink on them. So I'm going to grab a little bit of the sunny yellow and just going to kind of do a dot of color, a couple dots of color down, and then I'm going to bring in the other colors. So this is going to be right here. I'm just going to do a little bit of yellow there and then a little bit here. This is Alstroemeria. That's what it's called. Ha ha ha. I remember the name of it. I'm having a hard time As it is, I don't remember flower names well anyway. I think I could remember. I just am not exposed to them enough. So it's not like I have a bad memory. I just didn't learn them. So learning all of these all at once has been really fun. I've been just having everybody repeat really frequently so that I can pick up the names of them. So I'm just touching the page with a little bit of yellow wherever the alstroemeria was like in a little spray thing. It had like maybe 4 blooms all together. So there's one over here, one kind of in the back behind the rose, and then one over here by the solid aster. So it's just a little bit of yellow everywhere. And then once that is somewhat dry, I'm going to blow it off so it's a little drier. I'm going to add pink next to it. So this is not a flower shape. This is just adding pink around where the yellow is just to get the color on the page. And that is all I'm going to do because I really don't want a flower shape happening. I'm mixing a little bit more of the cerise and the orange that's on my palette. I'm going to get a little bit more. I don't really want orange. I just kind of want that color to not be so rich. Okay, and now I'm going to water that down. Let me make sure you guys can still see my palette. Yeah, okay, so you can see. Hi, Sophia! That's so sweet. She said she's waving at me. Aw, so cute. I love it. I hope you guys are feeling better. How are you feeling? Okay, so that is really bright. Is that too bright for you guys to see? It might be too bright for you guys to see. Let me move the curtain. And then it might be better. There we go. Might give you a little more shadow. All right. So cute. Alrighty, so the little pink flowers are just going to be a little color touched onto the page around each of those little yellow spots. So basically, almost like a little paw print shape, 3 at the top and 1 at the bottom, because they kind of like open like that. I'm just going to do very quickly, and it's very messy, and it's not particular, because it can be messy and not particular and still look really cool when you're done. You'll see when it dries. It's just a bunch of color everywhere, which is what we want. Just going to kind of touch it. And if you were doing a bigger painting, you could do more detail, but it doesn't need it for this kind of a thing. So you can see how dark this pink is going. As you go along, you will want to make your whole painting balanced. So you don't want any one piece of it to be too bright or too pink. So I'm bringing in a real deep color right now. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to have to come back to my roses and deepen them up a little bit because there's some shadows there that aren't happening. And just kind of keeping in mind that those are some really dark reds that we need to balance out. We need the other elements to match it. All right, so now we're going to do, so now we've got basically all the flowers. Let me just double check. Yeah, we have all the flowers. So now I'm going to add greens, and it's really fun to do the greens. So I'm going to start with the eucalyptus is a lighter green, so I'm going to start with that one, and it's going to be Payne's Gray. We'll start with Payne's Gray over here in the corner. Eucalyptus has a nice blue tone to it, so I'm going to use that, and I'm going to put Brilliant Green with it, and that's pretty much, that's the color. That's really close. Going to get a little bit darker, a little bit more saturated. It's almost exactly the color of the background of this, so that will pull in the other page, the adjacent page, very well. And now I'm just going to start to create the shape of the whole bouquet using these little sprigs that are coming out, which will be really fun. So this is, down here is going to be little round shapes, little rounded petals, or I should say leaves. They're going to be round all the way down I'm going to lighten that up a little because it's a little darker than I want it to be. So I'm just going to pick up some of the color by using a clean brush and sweep it off. It's a little bit more teal than I want it to be, even though it actually matches the color on the page. I'm going to start a little lighter, bringing that back. And I'm going to do some that are thinner, and then some coming up underneath that hydrangea. And now I can do some going up. Really like the loose, really loose eucalyptus that just kind of falls all over itself. So we're going to do some over here. And I'm following the picture, but I'm not following it exactly. I just like to have in my mind a little idea of what they're shaped like. And then up here, I'm going to do some larger leaves. These ones are more of like an oval shape. And they're sort of just everywhere. Isn't that interesting how that blue color still looks good with all those yellows and things that are happening? So right now, if you'll notice, I'm only drawing the petals, or the leaves, I'm sorry. I'm not drawing any stems because I'm going to come in and do lots of stems. But if you start drawing stems too early, it blocks up areas where you can put flowers. And that goes for everything that we've done so far. So if you're painting something like this on your own, just wait to do your stems until you've got all your little flowers in place, and then you can just use your stems and kind of connect. But if you draw a line, all of a sudden that line, nothing can go in front of it. So especially with watercolor, you can't layer. So you want to put in your flowers first, whatever's going to be at the front, and then you can just, behind that, draw in your stems wherever they need to be. So it works really well. Let's see. Oh, good. I'm glad you're feeling good, Teresa. Yes, I love eucalyptus too. I think that's my favorite green to use. You still need all the others, but it's just so whimsical and pretty. I love it. So I'm going to grab Brilliant Green, Peak Green. Well, I guess I'm trying to get to a green that I'm happy with. Okay, I basically mixed all the greens I have, and that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to start off with this interesting color, sort of watered down. And I'm going to use this for the lighter. This is called Israeli Ruscus. And it's this little tall sprig of greens that's really soft, has these really soft leaves. And it's not that bright of a green, so I'm trying to mute that down a little bit, but just going to only do, again, I'm still only doing the leaves. And this brush is really great for this because I can just basically touch the page and there is a leaf shape. Works really well. I want this to come up a little bit more, and I'm going to start doing these like little just lines. It doesn't even have to be a full leaf. Just to start filling in some of this green. I'm going to come looking for more of it. I don't have a whole lot of it going on. So I'm going to use the same green. Now I'm going to start to fill in the greens around the yellow aster that we have here. And I'm going to start doing like little leaves behind it to fill in that space, all that white space. So some of it's coming out across the hydrangea. Some of it's coming out to the sides. And I also have one sticking out of the hydrangea, so I'm going to do that one really fast. Just coming out straight from that, right there. Okay. And once I get the basic plants that really are there down, I'm just going to start filling in greens, because after a while you just got to kind of take the brush and then make your painting. You have your reference photo, you got your basic idea, but now you got to make that into a painting. And so to translate that, you have to sometimes just step away from what really is there and start doing what looks good to the eye. So what I'm doing now is adding little bits of green into the solid aster to make it have a stem, but I'm not drawing a straight line. I'm just doing little short dashes almost in between where the little clusters of flowers are, because if you just do a line, it'll look like all the flowers are on the backside. So you just got to do little bits at a time. And now I'm going to start painting little leaves inside the alstroemeria. This one with the pink everywhere. I'm just going to do some little leaves coming out of that. So you want some big leaves just kind of coming out, and then you want a lot of little greens sticking out here and there. Because in reality, you'd have some big leaves, you know, and then you'd have some smaller leaves. Okay, and then you'd have some that are showing more or less. So it's that challenge of randomness, but still being artistic. It's always a challenge. I'm going to do a big leaf right here coming out of the hydrangea. And then I'm going to start kind of filling in around the hydrangea a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to darken my green with, I think it's called grass green. Yeah, so number 44 grass green, if you're using the same palette I do. That is the nicest green for this painting. If I just add in a little bit of Payne's Gray to darken it up, kind of cool it off a little bit, it is the best green for these deeper greens. So that's what I'm going to use going forward for a lot of these darker areas. So around the hydrangea, there is a lot of shadow, like in and amongst and around it. So I'm going to start adding some darker shadows. There's some, they call it pit. I don't really know why it's called that, but it has these little white spots on it. Cool little leaves over here. And then, but I'm just going to basically use my brush to do little like spots of it. I don't want to actually draw the shape of the leaf, really. And then the next ones are going to be more solid. So this is a hydrangea leaf down here. I'm just going to do a real solid, wide leaf. I'm leaving a little bit of white space because most of my stuff has white space already. So I don't want it to be like swallowing it up. But I am going to do that right there. See how solid that green was? And I'm also going to start doing the, what is that stuff called? Salal, which is the funniest leaf name to me. I don't know why. It just it doesn't seem like a leaf or a green's name. It does kind of sound like salad, I guess. Anyway, I'm going to do two of these little leaves over here. Still leaving some white space as I paint this in, as you can see, but just getting the basic shape. And now you can see it's going a lot darker. So now I can take, I think I'm going to bring over some of the pink to the middle here a little bit because it's looking kind of sparse. So this is, again, where you start to take artistic license. Okay, now I need it to look like a painting. I'm going to do a little bit more color. So I need some pink there, and I think that looks good. So now I'm going to take my green, and what I was wanting to do is do some deep shadow there, but it just was so sparse right there that it needed something. And I'm going real dark because I have all these light colors, nothing to contrast them with, so they're not very appealing yet. So I just want to do a lot more dark, little bits of color. So it's all about dodging the flowers that you already have, just bringing in those super dark shadows. Doesn't feel like you should. You're like, oh, I don't want to use my dark colors. But look, like our hydrangea. Think about the hydrangea. You can't even see the edge of it right now because it's so light. So now I'm going to draw in all this dark stuff, and all of a sudden you're going to see the edge of a hydrangea. And I can even dot the inside of the hydrangea to start creating its shape. I can do some little like bits and pieces there. I can kind of slowly start to create the shadow around the rose. That'll make it stick up from the hydrangea. Doesn't have to be super specific. And I can come around this side of the hydrangea so you can see the other edge of it. So now do you see that little round shape is starting to take shape? And I'm going to break it up a little because I don't want it to look like a snowball in my painting either. We purposefully put flowers in between the hydrangea so it wouldn't look like a big puffball. And you got to do that when you're painting too, so that it doesn't look like a giant puffball. I'm going to put another leaf here to show the other edge of the hydrangea. So this leaf is going to come down this way. Now you can see the edge of that hydrangea. Isn't that great? I'm going to break it up a little bit more. It's still looking kind of round, so I'm going to just bring in some green. And I'm going to keep using that green to darken up. Look at that. Isn't that cute? It's looking really good. Okay. Grab all that dark green and come around the front side. I'm going to go down into the little leaves we've got going on here. I'm going to put some leaves out, way out to the side here. These are going to be our whimsical leaves that pull your eye to the edges of the bouquet. I'm going to do a few that are facing forward a little bit more. And see how I'm painting over top of the eucalyptus? That's because the eucalyptus is a lighter color. So that's what I was talking about earlier. You can't paint light on top of dark, but you can do dark on top of light. So if you start off with your light colors, you can layer in those darker colors as you go. I'm going to do another leaf out here. And I'm just kind of dodging the yellow thing I've got going on here. And I'm going to use this darker color just to bring some shadow behind that yellow, so it's not looking so sparse over there. Fill in these light areas. So basically I'm just doing little polka dots on the inside if you want to simplify that. I'm doing lots of little polka dots in between the flowers to make those look full through there. And then as I get toward the edges, I'll change those polka dots into leaf shapes, a little bit more distinct leaf shapes. Okay, now I'm going to change my greens color because as I come up toward the top, it's going to lighten just because there's more light hitting it. And I'm seeing that in the reference photo. So I'm just going to keep doing these dark shadows, but my color has changed just ever so slightly to be more light. And I'm going to keep filling in these greens because I want my bouquet to look nice and full, especially over here by the stuff that's sticking upwards. And now I'm going to use the very tip of this brush. This is where the single brush that is very nice with a fine tip comes in handy. I'm going to do the stems. This one, I've done enough of it already. This is the thing that's out in the front. So now I'm just going to bring each of those leaves down to the center and do a stem like this. Like that. So that's sticking up and that's good. I'm going to do a little shadow around it. On each of the leaves, I'm just going to add a little bit of dark. That looks really good. Now I'm going to lighten my green and do something similar on these little sprigs that are supposed to be white. I'm going to do just what I did. I'm going to add a little bit down here. I'm going to do just what I did with the hydrangea. by kind of shaping their little flowers. Even though they're white, these are white flowers, they would have a little bit of shadows, and then there's a little curly thing happening at the end. I'm going to do some little polka dots down at the end, like that. And we'll do the same thing over here, like a little flower is kind of sitting there, which I think is really fun. And I want this one to wiggle at the top too. It's got this cool little curly thing going on at the top, so that's what I'm going for. It's a little darker than I want it to be, so I'm going to soak up some of that green paint. And then I'm going to take a lighter green, very light green, and now I'm going to draw the stems. So there's a few places I can draw a stem. And when you do the stem on something like this, you don't just draw a line all the way up it, just like I said earlier. You do like little dashes because your stem will only show in between whichever flowers are in the front. So you just kind of do a little line and then maybe another little line and another little line to the end. I'm going to do a few things coming off of it. I'm going to do that down like that. So that gives it enough shape. I feel like it needs a little something more on this one. So I'm going to do a few more polka dots. Maybe just bring that end out more. Artistic license, like I said, going a little beyond the photo just to get the look right. I'm also noticing my yellow aster stuff over here. There's my official name stuff. Is a little bit shorter than it actually is in the photo. And it's probably just because I brought that other one so tall, so high up. So I'm just going to bring this up higher. Bring a little bit more that way. And it's not as bright as I want it to be right now, but I will go ahead and let that look good. All right, that's coming together. I always look up at the camera and I can kind of see it filling in, so that's looking better. All right, so now you probably notice it's a little lopsided, so we need to bring some stuff outward. I'm going to start using the green to kind of connect the eucalyptus. Let me just fill in a little bit more eucalyptus. That'll bring this edge out a little bit more. So I'm going to draw a eucalyptus that's not actually in the reference photo, but I'm going to bring that outward like that. I just did a really light couple of dots. I didn't even draw the round shapes like we did before. I'll draw a round one at the end right there, but didn't want it to be too heavy, so I just did that. And I'm going to do some like light dots that aren't really full leaf shapes. Right now I'm grabbing a little bit more of the Payne's Gray and just painting in a little bit more of that. Now I'm going to grab my green, and actually the eucalyptus stem is red, so I'm just going to grab burgundy, like a burgundy color, and draw the stems of the eucalyptus coming back to the same branch. And this one is going to do the same thing, just all of it coming back to the same branch. You don't have to draw a stem on every leaf. You can draw a couple of stems and then just leave the rest. That will get the point across and it will look more light and airy. So I'm going to connect these ones, connect that, and then bring that back. And these ones can just kind of be floating out there a little bit. So, and then this one over here is a little bit more abstract, so I'm not going to really paint that one in as much. Sort of just in the background, adding more color and layer. Basically just filling in this dead zone over here. And I'm going to use this light purpley color I have left on my brush to do the same thing on the other side. Just to fill in where I'm feeling like there's not anything happening. All right, that's looking really full. So one thing I want to do is deepen my roses again. I'm going to grab some crimson and brown, maybe even just a little bit of black. Sometimes it's hard to get that crimson to go dark enough, so I'm just going to really darken that color up with brown and black. Put that on the very tip of my brush. And I'm going to use that to create some shadows on this rose again, because the rose is sort of the focal point, and because our green is so dark, the rose can easily just disappear really fast. So I'm going to really gently add a little bit of shadow to the rose just to remind us that it's there, didn't disappear. And especially in the center of the rose, just going to do a little bit more of that. And I'll do the same thing on this rose up here. Again, straying a little bit from the photo, but just for the sake of you being able to see it, my eye being able to see it. I'm just kind of helping the eye see what's already there. All right, I'm going to grab some green and fill in some spaces I saw while I was doing my rose. So right here, I need a little bit of green behind this rose just to help these flowers have something to sit on. I'm going to do a little bit of I'm just doing quick little gray sprigs. They're not really even based on any particular thing in the painting, but that is giving another color and a little bit of shadow. I'm kind of dotting my hydrangea with it, coming around. I'm just looking for areas that are sort of empty and filling them in. I'm also doing little polka dots. And this is just kind of fun, like to come around and look for things that need help. My solid aster over here that got stretched out a little taller needs some shadow. I'll come down a little bit onto it. So basically all the areas that are super light, I'm just making sure that there's something to balance that out. They're not just sitting, floating in the air with nothing else around them. It's really important. Okay, keeping the hydrangea nice and light so it does show up. And lastly, I'm going to draw the stems at the bottom that go down into the jar. And I'm just going to do a bunch of different colors of green and brown, maybe even a little bit of burgundy for the burgundy stems. Just going to do green to start with. And I don't have to draw all the stems, just I want some going back and forth. I'm going to grab a little bit of the burgundy, do a little couple that way. And I want them, facing different directions. I'm going to grab a brighter green. I don't want to go too bright because even the bright greens are in a shadow right there, so they don't need to be very big. And they're all kind of crossing each other. And now I'm just going to grab the Payne's Gray and some of that darker green. Get a nice deep color. I'm even just going to add a little bit of the blue to it. Just getting a really dark kind of greenish blue. And that's what I'm going to do to draw the edges of the jar. The jar is kind of square in shape. So I'm just going to come down. And then do the bottom. And then I'm going to do like little shines kind of coming up the side. All right. Bring this out a little bit. I'm kind of drawing the back of the jar as well because it's see-through. All right, that's great. I'm going to do a little shadow using just a light gray. What's interesting is this is such a crazy shape of a thing that the light and the shadows spread out all around it. So I'm going to kind of do a dark shadow right next to it, but then I'm going to pull it out. In these like long lines, little bits and pieces that are going to make a good shadow. Like that. And I'm just playing with this, not really saying much, but think about your bouquet, how far out it goes. You can kind of play with your shadow. And if you think about mottled light, like when you're taking a walk and you see light coming through the trees, sometimes there's a big blotch of dark shadow and sometimes there's some really light shadows. So you kind of play with it a little bit. Shadow is one of the most fun things because you can really finish off a painting that way and make it feel done, feel finished. I'm adding a little bit of the color of the shadow sort of to the areas where there would be shadow, kind of matching it a little bit. It's coming up underneath some of these areas. Just doing a little bit of extra sprigs, just a little more sprinkles. All right. And this is the point at which I say, quit while you're ahead. It's looking good, so don't keep messing with it. And I learned that while I was doing the floral arranging too. At some point, you just have to breathe, let it go, looks great, and stop looking at it. And then when you walk away and you come back, you're just like, wow, it looks amazing, and you don't have to worry about it. So that is the final product. I really like it right opposite the other painting that I did of my mom and dad. In fact, it's got some nice deep colors that are making me want to also like deepen the colors here. So I might do that. But that is all I have for today. Teresa said, how did you end up helping at Dandelions? There is a wonderful lady named Sherry Ann there who is in our choir that Lisa Staley is leading up. And during the holidays, she asks us to help. And so I've been able to help one other time this year for Valentine's Day. So I got to do that once before I left for Tennessee. And then I get to help this week as well. So I'm really having a blast. It's been so fun. They said it's going to get crazy today and tomorrow, right before Mother's Day. But I'm excited anyway. I'm still having a great time. It's not work yet. I'm sure it would be soon, but not yet. And I'm enjoying it. Alrighty, thank you so much. Thank you, Teresa. That's really sweet. If you really liked this, please share it with someone that you think would enjoy it. And if you tried to paint this, please take a picture and post it on Artworthy Life so I can see. We love to share our artwork together. So I hope you guys enjoyed that and have a really blessed day. Go pick some beautiful flowers and paint them if you get a chance. Alrighty, take care. God bless you guys, and I'll see you next time. Bye.